What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I posted a charcuterie board video, so today I'm going to be making another Trader Joe's charcuterie board because you guys really liked that one last time. I'm starting the board off with a creamy Toscano cheese soaked in Syrah wine. I cut about 3/4 of the wedge off and then I started slicing down, trying to keep each piece the same thickness. I stacked all of the slices and then I cut them on a diagonal so that way we could get little triangular wedges. I used the triangles that had the purple rind on them and then I started making a zipper. Just arrange the pieces in a zigzag pattern on your board, alternating which direction they're facing. This is one of my favorite ways to style cheeses. It's a super quick and easy way to elevate the presentation of your boards. Next, I overlapped 2 of the triangular wedges and laid them around the board. The next cheese I'm using is a Toscano cheese with black pepper. I cut it the same way that I did, cutting the 3/4 off, and then I started slicing it the same way that I did with the Syrah cheese. Slice the cheeses in uniform pieces about 1/4 inch thick to ensure even presentation. Once you're done slicing, stack all of the pieces on top of one another and then cut them in half. I fan out the slices and then I laid them on the edge of the board so that way the rind was showing. I'm taking the other half and cutting it on a diagonal to get small triangles so that way I can use it to make a really small zipper. Arrange it in a zigzag pattern, alternating the directions that the triangles are facing, just like we did with the first one that we made. The following cheese that I'm using is a rich double cream brie. I cut it in half and then I decided that it was still a little bit too thick, so I cut it in half once more. Then I used my cheese knife to make small slices so that way I could layer on top of one another, and I tried to make sure I was keeping them the same thickness so that way they layered nicely. I overlapped them and placed them on the outside of the board. Moving on to meats, I'm starting off with the peppered salami. I'm using this to make a salami rose. Start laying your salami over top of the glass and continue doing that and overlapping them until it's full enough until you like the way it looks. Press firmly so that way all of the pieces stay together. Once you're done, flip the glass upside down, slowly and gently wiggle it back and forth until it comes off, and then place it on your board. I placed mine next to the Syrah cheese. Next, I'm adding some Italian dry salami to the board. I'm going to be folding it in half and then almost folding it in half again, but instead of folding it in half all the way, you're interlocking them together, kind of like a salami chain. Continue folding as many as you need until you can fill up the gap between all of those cheeses. I'm also going to be adding some prosciutto ribbons to the board. To do that, you fold it in half and then you fold it back and forth until you can't anymore and pinch the bottom. Continue doing that with a few more pieces of prosciutto and then overlap them and you have this really pretty ribbon effect. These multigrain crackers that I found at Trader Joe's are definitely one of my new favorites. They're very flavorful. I overlapped them and fanned them out and placed them on the board. I also added these sourdough twist cheese sticks to the board and they laid very nicely next to the salami rose. Moving on to fruits, I'm going in with some raspberries and just placing them throughout the board in places that I think need a pop of color. I also added a bunch of green grapes next to the Syrah cheese zipper. While I was at Trader Joe's, I also found these little tiny champagne grapes. I added a bunch to the board next to the raspberries and Syrah cheese. I love adding sliced strawberries to the board. Cutting them in half and leaving the tops on elevates the look of any charcuterie board. When working with red fruits, I use them to my advantage and place them in spots where I think need a little bit more color. I added some next to the brie cheese, next to the green grapes, and around the salami rose. And I also added some between the crackers and champagne grapes. Adding dried fruits to your charcuterie boards gives you a variety of flavors and textures. I added some of these sweetened dried orange slices behind the Syrah cheese zipper and between the strawberries and the grapes, and then I cut another one in half and placed it next to the champagne grapes. These orange slices offered a sweet and tart taste to add to the board, so I decided to add one more and I cut it in half. I laid it right behind the raspberries and the salami. I added dark chocolate covered pistachios for a delightful contrast of flavors. The rich velvety chocolate perfectly complemented the crunchy salty pistachios. It's the perfect blend of sweet and savory that takes your board to the next level. I added some lemon baton wafer cookies next to the champagne grapes and the sweetened dried oranges. I placed another bunch of the champagne grapes next to the salami rose, as well as some cut up strawberries right next to the lemon baton wafer cookies and a small bunch of green grapes. I added a ramekin to the board to fill with some jam later and cut up oranges next to it. Now I'm going in with some of this dark chocolate bark that has almond pretzels and sea salt. I'm cutting it up, but it does not have to be perfect at all. Once you're done cutting, add it next to some of the sweetened dried oranges. The two flavors pair very nicely together. I added some mini biscottis right next to the ramekin to add a contrast in color and flavor. If you like coffee, you'll love these mocha latte pretzels. I overlapped a few and added them in the gap. I'm filling in the rest of the gaps on the board using these dried mandarins, some green grapes, and a little bit more dark chocolate covered pistachios. Last but not least, I'm adding some of this apricot cardamom spread to the board. This one really paired nicely with all of the different flavors on the board. For the final touch, I placed some sweetened dried oranges into the cardamom spread. Here's my completed Trader Joe's charcuterie board. It's a perfect blend of savory cheeses, delicious meats, and fresh fruits, and a touch of sweetness with some dark chocolate covered pistachios. This Trader Joe's charcuterie board tastes just as good as it looks. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned to see some more charcuterie board videos.